for the better part of 6 months, just trying to find a good ideal time that worked for me and for them. And he reached out to me on Saturday morning and asked if I was interested, and I'm like, man, I said I'd love the opportunity to jump in the booth with you and to get the opportunity to work with Tony Stevens on the Pit Road TV, Cars TV broadcast, Lenny Baticki on Pit Road. And it was really cool, man. And the race, obviously, we'll get into that. The race was, let's just be honest, and it turned into quite a shit show there at the end. And well, like I said, it is what it is.
There's a lot of stuff going on. We're actually going to get into each one of those. But what I found interesting about it was it was such a good, because I was there, not everybody knows, I was there for the first part of the weekend. I had a prior engagement. I couldn't stay for the actual race itself. But the everything was really good vibes sort of going into that weekend. And then because I was watching the Richmond race while all this was going on, so I could do the recap. Check that out if you haven't on YouTube. But I was watching the Richmond race, and every so often, because I was following on Race Monitor too, I was like, man, what is going on?
Yeah.
So, I started doing the text messages and all that, and they were like, the track's coming up. So I guess that's the first thing. Let's get into that first. What did you think about the track going up from your perch hop there on the tower?
Yeah, well, I mean, we were sitting there, and honestly, the race took off, was really clean. Everybody got into single file. We were just kind of running laps and just trying to get to the first competition caution. And the caution came out on lap 29, and Tony and I both looked at each other. We had no idea. We scanned the track, didn't see anything, and again, great camera work by the guys from Pit Road TV. They had a shot zoomed in on the backstretch where we could see that the track had been coming up, and it is what it is, man. I mean, obviously Carteret is they're going to close this weekend and cancel this weekend's race to do some track repair, but and look, I give them all the credit in the world for trying to get it right and make it right, but they put in the patch, which I don't know what the composition of it is, concrete, quick seal, whatever it is. But once they got it patched and they let it sit, we got back to racing. And again, I mean, I think the first one was okay. I mean, those guys, they sat on the backstretch for the better part of half an hour. And, we were talking in the booth about, you talk about a cycle on tires. I mean, you went from basically racing hot to letting them sit for 30 minutes. So we were really interested on how the tires would react to sitting that long. But again, pretty good, pretty decent racing for another 20, 25 laps, and then all hell broke loose. And but the track came up.
How many times did it come up overall? Like, was it two or three cautions?
So three times total, and we got into the position and look, kudos to Danny Willard and Jack McNally for trying to get to the finish. But, there were a couple of things that we were running up against. And not just the track coming up, but with the track coming up, we had 2 red flags, over an hour that we weren't doing anything. We tore up a ton of race cars, unnecessarily in my opinion, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. But we actually ran up to, there's a curfew at Carteret, and there's a curfew at 11 o'clock. So we're on the broadcast talking about, all right, well, one of 3 things is going to happen. The track's going to come up for a third time and end this. We're going to run up against the curfew, or we're actually going to run green flag laps and get to lap 125. And we basically threw the checkers 35 laps short of the advertised distance. And again, I give Carteret County all the praise in the world for trying to get it right and fix it. But man, I'm telling you, it escalated.
So I was just following it from sort of like the Facebook perspective, because like I said, I was just watching it on Race Monitor, which is just your timing and scoring. And to me, it was so strange from the whole vibe of the weekend being like everybody's having a good time to all of a sudden you hear this 180, like the track's coming up, I hate this place, I hope we never go back. And to me, the track coming up wasn't really that big of an issue, because I don't care what track you go to, at some point, if you get this type of rain and this type of cold weather, it's hard for that track to stay together, especially on beach soil. So I didn't see that as a huge issue, because that stuff sucks, but stuff like that is going to happen from time to time.
Right.
So I didn't see that as a big issue. But people really just like turned on a dime and were like, man, blah 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 blah. This place, we don't never need to go back. So to that to me was more of just an overall frustration of actually the wrecks. Now I know they were sitting in their car getting hot, but to me, I think the wrecks had more to do with that. So let's talk about those cautions. What happened on the two big cautions?
So the two big wrecks, and obviously anybody that watched the broadcast or was there at Carteret County knows this, but the first big pile up melee of the night was on the restart from the first patch job, and and Brandon Pierce and was lined up on the outside row. He was second to lane, and he just missed a shift. And I mean, I get it. It is what it is. He missed a shift. And they just piled it behind him, and it's just an accordion effect. And I mean, that's a racing deal in my opinion. But before that, the first like caution for an actual wreck was actually Tyler Matthews. He coming out turn 4 and just blew a tire out, man. And I've never seen somebody hit the wall as hard as he did at Carteret.
Mm-hmm.
Now I did see somebody hit the wall just as hard about 40 minutes later. When the second big melee, which I think that's obviously the one everybody's talking about, and you can go back and look. I mean, it's all over social media, and it was very apparent that Brandon Pierce didn't lift. Still had 65 laps to go, and running in the top 5, and basically got into Minnie. I mean, and I talked to Minnie after the race. He's like, Steven, he's like, coming out of turn 4, I got lifted, and the back wheels never laid back down on the racetrack. He never lifted, never gave Minnie an opportunity to straighten it back up, and I mean, he wadded up. He wadded up 2 of my race cars. So from the graphics standpoint, I wasn't really thrilled that I'm going to have to rewrap 2 race cars before we go to Florence. But it's a racing deal. But
was it a type of move, in your opinion? Was it a type of move where it wasn't too aggressive, it was too aggressive for that moment in the race? Or was it just, he was just being too aggressive?
I think it was very poorly done. And look, I know that there's rubbing and racing. I mean,
mm-hmm.
and we all want to see that. And look, I even mentioned in the broadcast,
because there's different rules for the last 10 laps is what I'm sort of getting at.
But in the grand scheme of things, I made it very clear in my keys of the race that, Carteret being a one-groove racetrack, getting to the bottom off a restart is key. And everybody's trying to get to the bottom. You're going to have to push, and you're going to have to beat and bang a little bit. We saw Corey Haim and Lane do that towards the end of the race, where they were kind of beating on each other. Lane was able to get back by him. But in all honesty, my personal opinion is that it was extremely uncalled for especially as much of the race as was left. I mean, we weren't even to halfway, and trashed Justin Johnson, who had, I mean, look, him and Jason Stanley, they busted their ass working on that car in the first 50 laps to get to where that car was finally taking off, and he was up in the top 5. Jonathan Findlay had moved his way into the top 5, and obviously Minnie Terrell was in the top 3
mm-hmm.
pretty much the entire time until he got turned. And
sure.
I mean, a lot of frustration, a lot of hurt feelings, and rightfully so in my opinion. I mean, the other incident that took place, and we'll get into the fines here in a minute, but another instance that took place was after that second patch job, and we kind of got back. And I mean, look, man, we whittled this field down from 25 cars that started the race. We had 7 cars on the racetrack. And of those 7 cars,
only 3 of them.
3 of them were really racing. Yeah. The other 4 were just kind of limping around because of all the carnage that happened. But, Nolan Pope and Ronald Hill racing for position.
Yeah. So what happened there? A lot of people saw the fight afterward, but not everybody knows what.
Yeah, I mean,
was it sort of tit for tat? Or?
I think so. Honestly, I think it was more of a racing deal. And, I didn't talk to Nolan or Ronald after the race. Let cooler heads prevail and reach out to them at a later point. But going back and looking at and look, that was the beauty of being in the booth, man. I got to see replay and slow motion, so I could really kind of diagnose it and really kind of have a great perspective on what happened. But they're coming down the front stretch, and Nolan, he made himself clear of Ronald where he kind of cut Ronald off a little bit, but Ronald got back in the gas and didn't lift. And I mean, was he clear? Yes, but I mean, and again, Ronald probably could have lifted and we probably would have gone in, but I mean, hell, at that point they're racing against a curfew, they're racing against the track maybe coming up again. And look, Ronald had an amazing qualifying effort. I mean, he qualified top 10, which is the first time all year he's done that. Was steady pretty much the whole race, and I made the joke with him. I said, the first time in cars history that you come and practice on Friday before a race and you qualify top 10, you got to do that every week now. But no, I mean, and like you said, man, tempers flared, and there were a lot of hurt feelings, and but like you said, I don't necessarily think that Carteret's not a bad racetrack. I think that Bob Lowry and his team do a great job down there. I think my concern is that they don't see the amount of cars on a regular basis.
So that kind of leads me, I was wondering this, do you think they should cap, like tracks like this, do you think they should cap the entry at like maybe 15? Or did you want to do, I mean, I know you can't, you're in a rock and a hard spot there.
I don't think capping the number of entries helps. I mean, we talked about on our podcast on Thursday night, which I do want to recap that and talk a little bit about that experience before we jump off.
We'll get to it.
Yeah, but I think with Bob Lowry announcing that they're going to have a $20,000 to win late model race,
you're going to have just as many cars
in
there.
December. I mean, I feel like you're going to have. I don't know. I mean, I think there'll be some people that probably shy away from it. I still think you probably get a decent field of probably 22 to maybe 26 late models to run for that. And look,
it's a big chunk of change, man. You got
it is.
If it's near enough, you got to go.
Yeah, and I think too. Hopefully they can be a little more prepared for that. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an asphalt expert by any means, so I don't know what all goes into the chemistry and the maintenance of that. But look, this isn't the first time we've run into an issue like this in a cars race. I mean, the track came up a little bit.
Yeah, people don't remember that at Franklin County because of the great finish, but at one point in Franklin County, the track came up twice. Once in practice or qualifying or something like that, and then once during the race. So I mean, stuff like that happens. That's why I'm not concerned about the track coming up as much.
Yeah.
But I think we've covered that. Let's jump to the fights and the fines. So what happened after the cautions? We know Nolan Pope and Ronald Hill got into it on pit road, but there was some talk about Minnie Tyrell got into it with somebody, and Brandon Pierce, Minnie Tyrell and Brandon Pierce. So let's talk about that real quick.
So unfortunately, I guess the double-edged sword here is I've got a great view being in the booth of replays and what's going on, but the flip side of that is I'm not down in the pits where I normally am and can be kind of in tune with what's going on. It was very evident, very obvious to us in the booth. I mean, you've got a bird's eye view. When stuff started to happen and matriculate, and Nolan Pope went down, exchanged some words with Ronald, and I think for the most part it was over at that point. And then for whatever reason, Nolan went back a second time. Some fists were thrown. I don't know if anybody connected. I don't know, but I will tell you, I think the funniest image of that whole scenario from what I saw was. The image of Ronald sitting on his car just staring at Nolan like he had three spinning heads as cool as a cucumber. And I'm like, well, that's just typical Ronald Hill. He's done this for the better part of 25, 30 years, and he's seen it all. I mean, and look, I think Nolan he just got to the point where it just kind of boiled over for him. I mean, he's gotten caught up in some other people's stuff throughout the course of the year that's not necessarily his fault, and I think it just finally got to him. And,
I mean, let's face it, we've all been there. You cuss a guy out, you say what you got to say, and you're walking away, and then you're like, you know what? One more thing. I just remembered one more thing. And it's usually when you do that one more thing, that's when you should have just kept walking. But you got to get that one more thing in, and that's. I just think he lost control of his emotions, and that happens, man. It's an intense sport. You got a lot of passion. You're trying to win. There's a lot of work that goes into doing these races. So I mean, I get it. So he got what, terminated from the Touring 12 over this, and almost close to a $2,000 fine, which was basically all of his race winnings. And he's on probation. He can still race, right? But he's on probation for the rest of the year.
So to wrap up with Nolan, Nolan being a Lucas Oil Touring 12 driver, they basically have penalized him by revoking those for the last two races of the year. And look, man, that's a pretty big cost savings. I mean, that's 2 sets of tires at a discounted price. It's a discounted entry fee, a minimum amount of money that you get for starting versus someone that's not a Touring 12. So there are some things in there. I think in the grand scheme of things, being 2 races left, it's not that big of a deal because he does have the ability to run at Florence in a couple of weeks. So, but look, those guys are grinding right now, and they plan to go to Hickory either this weekend or Orange County next weekend to kind of get that taste out of their mouth and kind of get back to a racetrack. And then to follow up on Pierce, again, Pierce was
close to a $2,000 fine, and he's actually suspended for 1 race, right?
Yeah, so he was fined his winnings from Saturday night. I can't remember if he was. I don't think he was disqualified. I think he still got accumulated his points, but he will not be able to drive the car at Florence in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and. He's a Touring 12 driver as well. His Touring 12 didn't get revoked because his was more of an on-track incident. But that 2 car has to be at Florence in order to maintain the Touring 12 commitment, because the Touring 12 commitment is based on car number, not driver. We obviously
established that a couple years ago.
Yeah, we learned that a couple years ago. But again, when Josh Berry was disqualified at Ace,
he switched it to Connor Mosack.
Mosack's been driving the 88 ever since to do that obligation for the Touring 12 for Junior Motorsports as Josh Berry tries to chase a national championship. And but yeah, I mean, I think both of them are justified. I think Jack and Danny and whoever else chimed in on that, I think that those were both fitting punishments for the crime. I know that Brandon Pierce and Lee Pulliam were both called to the trailer at the end of the race and had a pretty lengthy conversation with Jack McNally after the event. And, like I said, man, I know racing is racing, but there's been a lot of instances with that 2 car involved, and he hasn't made a whole lot of friends here in 2020.
He's aggressive, but I mean, and I don't want to get into how somebody drives. That I'm not going to do that. Yeah. But what I found interesting is we've seen situations like this in the past with Raphael Lessard and
Setzer.
Brandon Setzer, Free Setzer. And they appealed it and got some of that peeled back, because I think they suspended him for the season, and he got it peeled back to 1 race.
I think it was 3 races or 5
and
races.
And he got it down to 1 race.
Yeah, something like that.
So there will be an appeal process. The part to me, I was like, okay, you took one guy's money and you suspended one guy from a race and took his money. To me, I would like to see the fine backed off a little bit, because that money you've got sort of built into your race weekend in your budget. I mean, you can fine them, just don't fine them everything. But I can also see it from Jack's perspective. He's trying to run a tight ship. He doesn't want to see that type of thing going on. But to me, fining them money is punishing the team when the team didn't. I know the driver's a part of the team, but the team didn't necessarily have anything to do with the driver going down there and just venting his frustration. Look, we've all been frustrated. I'm not picking on him for venting his frustration. We've all been there. But I mean, it's kind of. I would like to see the money sort of go to the team. But that's just me personally, coming from my perspective as helping on a race car sometimes. So I thought the fine of all that money was what I was like, wow. Like, I was like, wow, he took all the race money. And then, like you said, with Nolan going forward, he's taking all his benefit money, his extra associate sponsor money, basically, from Lucas Oil going forward. So, to me, that's what was unprecedented about it. He hit him in the pocketbook this time, as opposed to the other times that we've seen fights and stuff like that. He just hit him with time off.
Right. Yeah, and look, like I said, I think that from my perspective, I think that the punishment fits the crime. And, Brandon Pierce has been talked to in the past about his aggressive driving in the Cars Tour. And, you can go back and look at the interviews. And, every single driver that Lenny was able to interview after that wreck all had the same thing to say. Just a disappointment that one of their fellow racers was doing a little more aggressive than he needed to be. And look, man, I can understand Pierce and where he's at. He's in some of the best equipment out there. He's been in almost a 2-year drought from when he won his last race. He hasn't won a Cars race or a race since the season opener at Southern National in 2019. So you're going on almost 2 years, 2 full seasons without a win. And
so we got about 5 minutes. Let's cover. You said you wanted to cover the national championship points, and let's also get to the podcast.
Yeah,
if you want to.
I think we'll save the national championship stuff for next week, because it's double points at Hickory this weekend, right. And Barry's done a phenomenal job. He's won 12 races.
Well, who's the points leader right now?
Barry is right now.
Barry's leading right now.
Yeah, he is now. Millington's still second, I believe. I do want to give shout out and kudos to a former Cars super late model. Gracie Trotter won the second late
awesome.
model race.
Gracie.
Yeah, Gracie Trotter.
PRW chassis, by the way.
Yep. She won the second late model race on Sunday afternoon at Hickory. So congratulations to her. She's trying.
And it was a great finish too. So if you haven't checked it out, go to Hickory's Facebook page and check the last race there. Yeah, it's the last race. So check that last race.
Yeah. But no, and I just, like I said, I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to recap what we did last Thursday. And thank you to everybody that came out and joined us at Moonshiners on the infield.
Thanks to everybody that tried to watch it on Facebook.
Yeah, thank you to everybody that tried to watch it on Facebook. We had absolutely no idea that we were going to have
that many people in that building.
It was a party. And, Kirk Ipock, he asked Tony and I to come down and do the podcast. We did it last year, had a great time, sat down with several drivers, a little bit different scenario that we had set up this time, but we brought Debbie Finley on, and there was really nobody in there, and by the time we were done with our interview with Debbie, we had probably 60 people in that place, yelling and screaming and having a great time.
Which had never happened before.
Yelling and screaming and having a great time.
Which had never happened before, because like we said, on a Thursday, you hardly ever see that many cars at a track. So we were not expecting people to be there. So that we sort of just got caught unexpected, not expecting that, with our pants down, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
So we apologize for the audio. Yeah. I am trying to save it. I don't know that I can, but I'm going to try to save it and get it up on YouTube. But we were trying something new. We were trying to better the program. We're trying to give you a different look other than the white walls here. And we were trying to have the guests on live, because I know you would rather see your guys talking live as opposed to nothing here and then just a picture on YouTube. But we're trying something different. We're not going to give up on it. Yeah. That was just our first swing at it. Okay. We will try something different next time. But we were just trying something different, something new.
Fail forward, as they say. And I think,
and we appreciate the opportunity from Kirk and Bob at Carteret County. Yeah. We really appreciate the opportunity, and we will, if we do it again next year, we will try to be better prepared for it.
Yeah, and I do also want to thank Andy Marquis. Andy got us set up once we got there to Carteret with the Wi-Fi, and some of the lighting and getting everything set up like we wanted it. And again, we just kind of
And all the guests for coming in.
all the guests.
Hanging out. Like a lot of guys hung out for a long time.
Yeah.
And Jared Fryer, we apologize once again. We did not realize you were back there. We would have got you in there too. But Jared showed up late, and I didn't see him walk in, so that was on me. But we tried to get everybody that was there on.
Yeah.